Welcome to the Oh Hell No podcast, where I, Keisha Nicole, delivers a daily dose of passion, purpose, and struggle by interviewing people who are living their best life doing what they love. Here on this podcast, every Oh Hell No moment serves a purpose. Now let's get started with the show. So welcome to another episode of the Oh Hell No podcast. Today we have Michael Weitzman. He is a mental health advocate, and he's going to share his journey with us to being a part of the mental health community and how he's used his experiences to help others who suffer from mental health issues. So welcome, Michael. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So let's start by talking about mental health overall. You have suffered from some mental health issues. Can you tell us how you discovered these issues, what they are, and just take us through how you discovered it?
I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes. And the Cliff Notes is basically, for me, it started when I was 5 years old, when I was stuttering and having problems with the THs and stuff like that. So I was actually having issues even at the age of 5, but nothing that I can really, made any damage to me major at that time. But after that, it really started full blown when I was 16 years old, where I failed my road test 3 different times. And failing a road test when you're 16, not just 1, not just 2, but 3 times was very traumatic. I really started with my mental illness, but as I tell people, I suffered in silence. I didn't come out of the mental health closet until 25 years later. So I basically suffered in silence altogether for about 40 years, 25 in silence. And during that time, I had a marriage, 2 young girls, and, started my career in the mortgage business, and I was doing unbelievably great. Even though the mental illness was still wasn't out. I didn't come out of the mental health closet, but it was just there. But I was making so much money. So, the antidepressant was my money that I was making during that time. And, so from 1999 to like 2014 was my worst years. I was in 6 psychiatric hospitals, 13 outpatient units, a suicide attempt, and I was just unbelievably bad from 2005 to 2014. And even though I made a lot of money, it wasn't making a difference. The money started going down in 2007, 2008 in the mortgage crisis. So that's really what was going on. And what was I feeling during those times of mental illness? The signs were isolation, anxiety, stress, worrying, anger, overreaction, loss of interest, fear, negative thoughts. I was like a ticking time bomb during all these years, for 40 years of suffering in silence with my mental illness. So that's really what happened with mental illness, where I suffered so much for so long. Now, the understand is that I did come out of the mental health closet, as I call it, in 1999, and finally, as I call it, did the triangle, and that is see a psychiatrist, get the meds, and then see a therapist. And I call that the triangle. And that was what I did for 15 years, but I couldn't get the right medicine. It was not getting me to the promised land. I still was very sick. And during that time, I had a suicide attempt and more psychiatric days in the hospital. So what happened is after 2014, October 29th, which I'm coming up to my 6-year anniversary, I went into my 6th hospital stay in 2014. And in that last stay, which was my 6th stay, I made a decision that I'm going to make everything in my power to never give up. And really this time, while I'm in a psychiatric hospital, I'm going to work on a workshop called the 3 Amigos of Mental Health while I was a patient in a psychiatric hospital. Very similar in the movie Patch Adams, which I'll get into that in a minute. So what basically happened is that I developed ideas about what am I going to do with this workshop? The first thing is I had to stay mentally well. So what was it that finally got me to get and stay mentally well for over 40 years was all of these wellness tools that I have used and still use to this day with medicine, psychiatry, and whoever your talker might be or a therapist. And those are the things that I was using from 2014 when I got out of the hospital on October 29th, 2014. I used all these wellness tools like journaling, meditation, deep breathing exercises, affirmations, creed, prayer, God, Bible, Jesus, music, self-improvement tapes, inspirational movies, spiritual readings, walk, exercise, hypnosis. There's so many types of wellness tools that what got me to finally stay mentally well now for almost 6 years. And of course, one last thing is, thank God I had a support staff, which was part of the treatment that I call it. And I had my parents who are no longer now, but when they were alive, they were my best and my most important source of support. And I always tell people, you need a support staff. It's very, very important. So that's just a little bit of what I was doing during that time.
So let me ask you, does mental illness run in your family? Did anyone else suffer from what you suffered from?
Absolutely no. No one in my family had mental illness. No one. Nope, not at all.
Oh my goodness.
My ex-wife definitely had a mental illness, but she was one of those, as I call it in my workshop called the Three Amigos of Mental Health. You either have someone that is suffering with a mental illness, suffering in silence with a mental illness, or not suffering at all. My ex was in denial and didn't believe that I had a mental illness, even though I had all the signs of, depression and sleeping on the floor and having loss of interest and that. So there's a lot of people out there that are like that don't understand what it tastes like and what it feels like to have a mental illness. And that's my job now as a speaker, advocate, and a peer support specialist, to let people know what it feels like and tastes like so they can be more understanding and loving to the people around them, whether friends or family, that are suffering with a mental illness. And most importantly, that it's not their fault. And that's just some of the things that I've done.
So do you know what your triggers are now that you have been in a healthy space for 6 years?
Yep. My triggers were worrying all the time. Was one of my biggest worries, especially when I was making all that money and then the money wasn't coming in. And boy, that was a trigger right there. So that was one of the things. But I would do things. But what I did regarding like a worrying is that I would come up with an affirmation and say, stop worrying as much as you can so you can become a much healthier man. And I would do that for 6 years to this day. And it became a reality. So I didn't worry anymore. I also would overreact to things. And that's part of the sickness. It's part of the disease. It's part of the mental illness to overreact and have this anger. And I just don't have that anymore. And I also, which I'll get into in a minute, about what were some of the things besides for my treatment that I worked on, was self-improvement books that dealt with like Wayne Dyer. And a great book that I recommend highly for everyone, especially who has a mental illness or not, is called The 4 Agreements by Miguel Ruiz. And that is not to take anything personally and be impeccable with your word. That's just 2 of the agreement. So those are the things that I did. It was really, really the wellness tools that got me to get to the promised land, to be and to stay mentally well. And I stress to everybody, it's like we all can get better. I had a ticking time bomb. I would get better, and then I get sick again. Then I get better, then I get sick again. And it was like a ticking time bomb, cave of hell that I went through for those 40 years. But it was really these wellness tools that got me to do it. And to this day now, it's recommending all these type of things to do with your medicine, with your psychiatrist, and with your meds. And the biggest one of them all was humor. And that's why I do a lot of stand-up comedy now based on mental health humor. And that was really one of my biggest wellness tools, is using humor. And the reason is because of one person and one person only. It's because of Robin Williams. And Robin Williams, suicide took Robin Williams' life on August 11, 2014. My favorite movie is Patch Adams. I love Mrs. Doubtfire. And the whole thing about Robin Williams is that I wanted to use humor to show people that even if you have a mental illness, you can still have fun with your mental health without making fun. I have come up with things called bipolar gum. I have it right here. We're going to be showing, if it was on TV, I have bipolar gum. It's not really bipolar gum. You're not going to get bipolar by eating the gum. But again, have fun with your mental health. Don't make fun, have fun. So those are the things that I would do. I wouldn't call myself bipolar anymore or label myself as bipolar. Now I call myself bipolar no longer. Again, have fun with the mental health. And again, it's just mental illness. It really should be treated like any other chronic illness, disability, addiction, anything, that it should be the same, but we don't get treated that way. When you say someone has a mental illness versus having a broken leg, we get treated differently, and that has to change. And that's another thing I'm really big on, is getting rid of the stigma of mental illness, because it's just like any other disease as long as you work on your recovery.
Yeah, I think that mental illness is scary because sometimes you don't know what the mental illness is that someone has. And if you don't know how to manage it or be supportive of it, it can be a scary experience, just depending on what the other person is going through.
Oh, definitely. And the key to me is relatability. I mean, like if I had an addiction problem, I would love to use a counselor that used to have an addiction problem that became a counselor, because he knows what it's like to suffer with addiction. Same thing with mental illness. I suffered in silence for over 40 years. So now, as not just a speaker, an advocate, and a comedian, I also can really, really engage. I can interact. I can really relate to anyone, whether you're suffering or suffering in silence. And most importantly, educate those people that don't have a mental illness, to let them know what it tastes like and feels like, so they could be more supportive and loving to the friends and family that are suffering in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you go out and help people? Are you going into centers where people are seeking help? Are you referred by maybe a therapist, or like where do you go to find people to actually help? And
well, that's before pandemic. I was doing a lot of seminars, and I would do my own seminar. I work at a psychiatric hospital that I actually used to be a patient at. I'm a peer support specialist over there, and I work at the hospital. But on my other career, with my speaking career with the Three Amigos of Mental Health and my other story, my key is I want to tell my story. So I've had a lot of places at NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. You have MHA, and organizations and clinics and hospitals that would get me to speak. Now I'm obviously doing more webinars and doing more podcasts, with mental health podcasts as well, to really show people that, you know what, I was there. I did it. I've done it. I've gotten sick, but I was able to finally to get and stay. The word is stay. It's like you're talking to a dog. Stay mentally well. And the key is, it's not about just getting better. It's how do I stay well with my mental state? And that is something that I'm pushing. So all these places right now that contact me, I'm doing more from webinars. I've been on TV. I've been on radio. I'm trying to get on more TV and radio stations. I'm trying to get on more podcasts, because what we need more than ever in this world, especially now during the pandemic, is talk about mental health more than ever. And the reason is, one of the biggest symptoms that I went through with my own mental illness, it's called isolation. And boy, have we had a lot of isolation during the pandemic. You know that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, it's about what can I do now? So I am working on my book. I'm not finished with it yet. Once I get the book out, then I want to do a documentary, and I want to do a movie on my life. to show people that even though it took me 40 years to finally get mentally well, I never gave up. I tried everything in the book, and finally it was all these wellness tools, that really got me to stay mentally well. Prayer, support groups, candles, listening to music. My cat is a wellness tool. I mean, there's so many things can be a wellness tool besides your medicine and your psychiatrist and whoever your talker might be or therapist. So I'm not saying you shouldn't have to take medicine or see a doctor or a therapist. At some point, like in my case, I was able to wean off some medicine. I don't take a lot of medicine anymore. I'm not saying you shouldn't. Everybody's different. So I can't compare that. But that's really what it's all about. And besides trying to getting more on TV and radio and podcasts, I speak at a lot of conferences and I speak at many other places. But now it's unfortunate more on a webinar base until we finally have a cure or we get better with the results with this pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good that you found a way to continue your work because it's important. And we also need to learn how to be resourceful. So I think it's great that you're still continuing to do this. So take us through a day for you. Like what does a day look like for you when you wake up in the morning? What do you do to maintain your mental health?
For my mental health now, it's just like I said, in the shower, doing my affirmations, doing my creed. My other one is I used to never be very patient. I'm not a patient guy. Yes, I've been inpatient and been in a hospital as an inpatient, as you get the pun. But the point is, I'm constantly doing my affirmations and I'm constantly finding out other ways that I can stay mentally well. And that I just keep on. I never have a day. My days are like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. So I've really had a great 6-year run right now, and I want that to continue. So I wake up in the morning. I'm just as positive as can be. I'm always contacting the media, TV, radio, podcasts to get me to speak and perform. I do stand-up comedy as well. And I also have a character called Mrs. Staying Alive, which is I've auditioned on America's Got Talent twice. I didn't get on. Hopefully next year I will get on. And she's basically Patch Adams meets Mrs. Doubtfire. And so an old, pretty interesting looking lady that's all about getting rid of the stigma of mental illness by using humor as your biggest wellness tool, and all about equality. So it doesn't matter when I do my workshop or do it as Mrs. Staying Alive, it doesn't matter if you have a mental illness, a chronic illness, a disability, elderly, addiction, suicide thoughts. What is the theme? The theme is no matter what is going on with us inside and out, we are what? All created equal. And that is what I'm all about, equality for people that have a mental illness or not. And that's very important to me. So every day I get up, the whole day is about how am I going to help somebody with their mental health. And I always come up with my own quote is, what am I going to do with this passion to give value in helping others? That to me is what the definition of success is. I had all the money in the world. It's not about having the best car and the house and all the things I had, all the materialistic things. That's good, but that doesn't make really who you are. My philosophy now at the age of 61, and I'm going to be 62, what am I going to do to help others? And my cause is a lot to do with mental illness and helping people with their mental health. And that's what I do. And as a peer support specialist, oh my God, it's like I'm really helping so many people at the hospital that I work at. I got people all around. I did a Goldcast video that I hope you will watch one day. It has over 1 million views. They made me the star of the Goldcast video. Debbie Lovato is in there as well, and some other famous people. But they made me the star because this has to stop. There is something out there that people have something going on with their mental health, and they shouldn't feel shame about it. And it's not their fault. And it's something that we need to bring out more and more, especially because of the pandemic, by getting rid of the stigma, have people tell their story, and then let that spread really rapidly so that we can be that person, that I can be that person to really, really help everybody with their mental health, and so much more.
Okay. So what things would you tell people to look out for in their own behaviors that might be silent, I don't know, whispers that they might need to, get themselves checked out? Like, what would you say are some things?
Called what do they need to do to start their recovery? And that's really what it's all about. I didn't start my recovery and really until after, I told you 25 years, until I suffered in silence. So for people that are out there that are having these type of symptoms, like they're dealing with isolation right now. They have some fear because of the pandemic. They're afraid they might get it, or they might have it already, and they might have these like really negative thoughts that, like I said before, they might be worrying because, I just lost my job. I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent. There's so many people that are suffering more than ever now during the pandemic. And when these people are suffering, I recommend to go to certain clinics, go to hospitals, go to MHA organizations, NAMI, and really, really get yourself out there. You can do things now over the computer through Zoom and so forth, and you can talk to therapists, you can speak to a psychiatrist, and or some places are seeing patients a little bit here or there. And the signs, you see all the signs. And the key here is really called, how do you get people to deal with acceptance and opening up about their mental health? Because their friends might not have it, and they're afraid that their friends or family might say, "Oh my God, maybe I can catch it from them." And there's so many myths I go into about the myths of mental illness, which is a joke. You can't catch it from anybody, and it's everybody has a reason why they might have it. Could be could be the childhood they went through. It could be a traumatic situation. Everybody's different. But when I see people right now, when I'm dealing with people in the hospital, the most important thing I go to people is, what are you doing to work on your recovery? First, come out that you have in this situation. It's like somebody has a drinking problem. They keep saying, I don't have a drinking problem, but they keep drinking. They need to deal with acceptance to open up they have a problem, or they have an issue going on. And the same thing with the mental illness. And once they do that and they go into try to work on a recovery and go to these places, don't feel ashamed. It's strength when you go working on your recovery and telling people that you have something wrong with you. And hopefully your friends and family will be supportive instead of being shameful, which some still are out there at this time.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, please tell us where people can get connected with you, follow all of the content that you're putting out there.
Well, they can get me on Twitter at mweitzman3 at Twitter. They can get me from emailing me at mweitzman, that's WEITZMAN 3@gmail.com. They can even call me at 914-523-5766. I speak for people all over the world, all over the United States, that they see the videos that I send out there. I send a lot to you. I have so many isolation videos. I have regular videos. I'm trying to show that to everyone that it's cool. It's okay. I make it cool, fun, enjoyable, engaging, and humorous and helpful to talk about your mental health and your mental health challenges. And I do it in a fun way, and I do it in a humorous way as well. If we had the video now, I always have the big red nose, because that was from the Patch Adams movie. I'm always telling people to watch mental health movies. Silver Lining Playbook is a beautiful movie. Patch Adams is another amazing movie that people need to watch, because it's all about improving people's quality of life. In this case, improving the people's quality of life regarding mental health and mental illness. So they can get me at those places. At the moment, I put a pause on Instagram and Facebook. It was just taking a little time off from those media, but they can always get me at all these places, and I can give them free advice. I have a list of wellness tools that I can send people. I have lists of movies and important books to read, like the Four Agreements and things like that, Wayne Dyer books. And really, I'm a source for helping people with their mental health. And that's where, and I want to be getting more exposure out there so I can get national exposure so that I can say, you know what, this is something we need to do to use more wellness tools with the triangle, med, psychiatry, and the talker to really help with our mental health and deal with this inequality that's out there still, that people think that having mental illness is bad. But 1 out of 4 people that's diagnosed with a mental illness. And what about the 0.25% of people that have a mental illness, but they haven't come out of the closet yet?
Yeah, definitely. So usually I ask my guests to share an oh hell no moment that they've had. And I usually ask before I ask you to drop your handles, but I'm going to have you share your oh hell no moment with us.
Well, I have 3 of them. Which one do you want?
Whichever one you want to share that taught you something or changed your perspective on something.
I'm going to give you an aha moment to show people that we all have value inside of us. There was a woman that I went out with on just one date because she lived in Brooklyn and I live in Rockland at the time, and that's a 2-bridger, meaning I had to go over 2 bridges to see her. That's a long truck, and so we just stayed as friends. She's a teacher, like a yoga fitness teacher at a high school in Brooklyn. And that's what she did. So she told me she had an assignment that she put together with all her high school students, and she put all these quotes, these inspirational and motivational quotes, all around the gym. And they asked, they had Martin Luther King, they had Oprah, they had Mother Teresa, they had all these famous people, and then they had a quote that went like this: love who you are and be who you are, and someone out there will see your true beauty from the outside and within. So they had that quote from some person, and then we had put all these quotes in the gym. So she asked her students, the high school students in Brooklyn, where she was the teacher, and said, I want you guys all to pick your favorite quote. Because again, you got Martin Luther, you got Mother Teresa, you got all these, and Oprah, all these famous people. So they tally it up. Over 75% of the students picked that quote, love who you are and be who you are. And so I got a text the next day from the girl I went out with just on one date. She said, oh my God, Michael, you're not going to believe this. I go, what? Well, the quotes that everyone picked your quote. That was my quote, love who you are and be who you are. So out of Martin Luther King and Mother Teresa and Oprah and all these famous people, 75% of the high school students picked my quote. And it says right on it, underneath it, Michael Weitzman. So what I'm trying to tell people, it doesn't matter, even if you're not famous in reality sense of it, that I don't have it. We all have fame inside of us. We all have success inside of us. And it's how you use that and keep doing that never give up attitude, whatever you want to do in life. Because for someone that had a suicide attempt, that had 6 hospital stays in psychiatric units, 3 outpatients, suffered for 40 years in silence, and suffered with a mental illness for over 40 years, is now unbelievably thriving and helping so many people with their mental health and mental health challenges. And that's what gives me up to wake up every morning. Who am I going to help today?
Wow, I love it, Michael. That's a great oh hell no moment. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for sharing a bit of your journey with us and what you are doing to help make humanity that much better. We appreciate you, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem.